What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the stream. It is Wednesday. It is Thursday, February 5th, noon here on the East Coast. And wherever you are, thank you for tuning in today. Welcome into Headliners Unfiltered. Excited to chat it up with the nation today. We've got a few different football topics. It's the last week of football, believe it or not. No more football for several months. We'll turn our attention to off-season content. We already have, but we'll start doing more off-season content. We'll have some other sports that we'll have to start talking about here very soon. So we're going to spend the last week of football talking football. TC, Mo, OEG. What's going on, OEG? Thanks for becoming a member once again. Although, I don't know why it's welcoming you to Holden Chubb when you have most clearly been here for an extended amount of time. There is a train coming through. It is loud. I think we're good now. There is an intense debate going on in the NFL world right now when it comes to the Hall of Fame. And I think if you look at really any sport, for the most part, I don't think you can look at any sport and say, oh yeah, the Hall of Fame balloting process is 100% perfect. I don't think any sport really has like a perfect Hall of Fame process for the most part. But it's been a while since I've heard a lot of commotion from the NFL Hall of Fame. MLB Hall of Fame every single season seems to have some commotion. Whether or not somebody should have gotten in. What about the steroid era guys? But this year, it's a little bit of a different debate. And I think that there are two sides to every story. And it brings up the reason why Hall of Fame voting just isn't perfect anywhere. What's going on, Brad? Because you could argue that Bill Belichick is the greatest head coach of all time in the NFL. You could argue that Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. You could argue that Bill Belichick wouldn't have been as successful, but still successful without Tom Brady. You could argue that Bill Belichick on his own would have been just fine, and just unfortunately at the end of the career, he just didn't have teams positioned to win. You could argue a lot of different things when it comes to Bill Belichick. The argument that is being had right now comes down more to the fact, should Bill Belichick and his Hall of Fame potential be snubbed, delayed, whatever it may be, because of what people feel he was as a head coach? And that is, they won an awful lot of championships, but did they always do it the right way to get there? I think that says a lot about where the voters' minds are with Bill Belichick. So the question becomes, when you have a committee of people that get together to vote on the Hall of Fame, what are you looking for? And if you don't want it to be biased, does the NFL need to do something about that? Does the NFL need to change the committee that's being used? Does the NFL need to set different standards when it comes to voting? Should the voters be allowed to essentially say, we are not a fan of the way Bill Belichick did some things when he was the head coach of the New England Patriots, and we don't love the fact that there was Deflategate, and we don't love the fact that there was Spygate, and we don't love the fact that there was this or that. Is that okay? When putting somebody in the Hall of Fame, should we just be strictly looking at their resume and their resume only, and not taking into consideration what they may or may not have done on or off the field? I don't want any labels. I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. But if you look at people in the Hall of Fame, there are some guys that you can point to that had off-field issues that made it into the Hall of Fame. And those off-field issues, I would say, are more of a serious concern than whether or not a head coach found a way to tape a practice, or whether or not they change the footballs, or whatever it may be. And they made it to the Hall of Fame. So should Bill Belichick be held accountable for some of those things the way others were not going into the Hall of Fame? I think something that can be said about it is the Pete Rose argument when it comes to baseball. For those of you that don't know, Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball. One of the greatest baseball players of all time, you could argue. And he is not in the Hall of Fame because when he was done with his playing career, he went on to manage the Cincinnati Reds. And while he managed the Cincinnati Reds, he was found to have been gambling on games that he was managing. Received a lifetime ban from baseball. Spent years trying to fix a reputation that had been tarnished, ruined, darkened, whatever you might want to call it. And ended up passing before he could find himself in the Hall of Fame. And from a baseball standpoint, your all-time hits leader and your all-time home runs leader now are not in the Hall of Fame. But the argument can be said, well, hey, Pete Rose is not a Hall of Fame manager. He was a Hall of Fame player. And he was never caught doing this while he was a Hall of Fame player, only as a manager. So does he really deserve to be left out of the Hall of Fame as a player when he didn't seem to do anything wrong as a player? But he was held out anyway because of that. He was held out anyway because of the fact that he had a lifetime ban. When you take a look at Bill Belichick's resume, it's hard to argue against results that lasted as long as theirs did. Because, yes, you could say that, there's two major incidents that happened while Bill Belichick was the head coach of the New England Patriots. And those two incidents are enough for me to say that he can't get my vote because he just didn't do it correctly. But when you look at the course of how long Bill Belichick was in New England, and hold on because I want to make sure I get it right. And I hate that if I look up Bill Belichick, the first thing that comes up is Bill Belichick girlfriend, Bill Belichick girlfriend age, Bill Belichick girlfriend pictures, Bill Belichick wife. Those are all the top hits. I want to see something real quick. So, he was the head coach He was in Cleveland, 91 through 95. So he took over as the head coach for New England in 2000. And in 2001, they won a Super Bowl. And then in 2003 and in 2004, they won a Super Bowl. And in 2014 and 2016 and 2018, they won a Super Bowl. They were also AFC champions, AFC champions, AFC champions. They had records of 5-11 in his first year, then 11-5, 9-7, 14-2, 14-2, 10-6, 12-4, 16-0, 11-5, 10-6, 14-2, 13-3, 12-4, 12-4, 12-4, 12-4, 14-2, 13-3, 11-5, 12-4. And then in 2020, 7-9, back to 10-7, 8-9, and then inevitably his last season 4-13. That is a run that spanned from 2000 to 2023. So when you take a look at Bill Belichick and what he did over the course of his career, yes, there are two incidents that you look at and you say, man, I really don't love how Bill Belichick did that. That rubs me the wrong way. I don't want to vote for him in the Hall of Fame, but those are two incidents over a 23-year career. Did those two incidents help him win a Super Bowl or an AFC championship every single time they did it? I don't think so. So at that point, then, now what we have is we have a bunch of people voting on the Hall of Fame that just have a personal bias. And unfortunately, Bill Polian seems to be right at the forefront of that. And Bill Polian had an excellent executive career in the NFL. And obviously was with the Colts for a very long time. And the Colts were one of those teams that may have had more Super Bowls, may have had more opportunities, may have been able to do more things had it not been for Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and their success in New England. To me, it sounds like it's more sour grapes from Bill Polian than anything if he truly was at the forefront of saying, well, I'm not going to vote for Bill Belichick because I don't like the way that he did things. Bill Belichick also famously had a huge segment on how Lamar Jackson shouldn't play quarterback. So I don't love that. And now come to find out, because there was a little bit of talk about Robert Kraft, because Robert Kraft being up for election this year as well. Robert Kraft, the thought is that maybe he had some influence over the votes, that potentially because that there is still some negative energy between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and the way things ended in New England, that because of that maybe there was some influence from Robert Kraft that he did not want to go into the Hall of Fame and share that spotlight with Bill Belichick in his first season in. But come to find out, Robert Kraft doesn't even get in. If you're taking a look now, here's the thing: if you want to argue that Bill Belichick did some shady things as a head coach, that's fine. But at what point in time did Robert Kraft potentially have any influence over that? I know he leads the Patriots organization. I get that. But you also have an organization that even this year is back in another Super Bowl with no Tom Brady and no Bill Belichick. I would argue that Robert Kraft is probably one of the most successful owners, if not the most successful owner ever in the history of the NFL. And Robert Kraft isn't even getting in to the Hall of Fame now. So the whole theory about, well, maybe Robert Kraft had something to do with it because he doesn't want to share the spotlight of going in with Bill Belichick. This is the problem with holding on to things for too long and not basically moving on from, you know what, it is what it is. We're so many years down the road. Why are we still trying to police Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and the New England Patriots for what they may or may not have or did or were held up for or whatever it is? Fatal, becoming a member for the 51st month. 51 times 5. No wonder I'm broke. Fatal, we appreciate the love here. Thank you so much for your generosity of being a member for the 51st straight month. Woo! I am just... And here's the thing, too. When you hold on to jealousy for as long as what some of these people have been, all you do is you make yourself miserable. Like, do you really feel better about yourself for not voting for Robert Kraft or not voting for Bill Belichick just because you have a personal vendetta because you don't believe that they did or didn't do something correct? Like, is that where we're at these days? Is that really where we're at? Because here's the thing, maybe you have a personal vendetta against Robert Kraft and you decide that you're not going to give him your vote for the Hall of Fame this year. But you know what? Maybe next year. Next year. I'm going to leave him out because that's a theory too. That's a theory too. There is a theory that some of the voters basically just want to say, hey, we don't love what you did, so we're going to hold you out this year, but we'll vote you in next year. Robert Kraft is no spring chicken. What if, unfortunately, Robert Kraft were to pass before he gets a chance to go into the Hall of Fame? And he is never there to witness what he works so hard for. Because you had a personal vendetta that you wanted to hold on to and that you wanted to play police and hold him out 1 year. If you're going to vote him in, just vote him in. If you're going to vote him in next year, there's no reason to not give him your vote this year. That's just stupid. That's just stupid. It makes no sense. It literally makes no sense whatsoever. If you're going to hold him out this year and put him in next year, then just put him in this year. What's the point? What is the point? There isn't any, and that's the problem. There isn't any point. If you're going to put him in, put him in. If you're not going to put him in, then don't. If Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are never going to get your vote, then decide right now, I'm never going to vote for them. Regardless of who's on the ballot, regardless of who goes in there, anybody. If you don't feel that Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft deserved your vote this year, then there is nothing that should change your mind to whether or not they deserve it next year. And if that's the case, then you better have a darn good reason for holding out probably one of the greatest coaches and one of the greatest owners of all time. Fatal says, for Players Hall of Fame voting, you are only allowed to think about their on-field play, not their out-of-game stuff with GMs and owners. How does that work considering they are full-year jobs? Well, there's like a code of conduct, right? There was a talk like not Roger Goodell, but the NFL Hall of Fame basically came out and said that we have a code of conduct that our voters should be following, and if they are not following it, then we are going to find people who can be held to those standards. I would agree that if for your players, if the criteria to get into the Hall of Fame is their on-field play, and that is only what you should be looking at, because let's be honest, for some players in the Hall of Fame, if you're looking at things outside of what they did on the field, then they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. You could argue Brett Favre. You could argue Ray Lewis. You could argue tons of guys that had off-field issues that found their way into the Hall of Fame. That if that's part of it, then you should either be pulling them out of the Hall of Fame or you shouldn't be putting them in at all. So if that's your consideration, then it should be your consideration for coaches, GMs, owners. What was the product on the field? And if the NFL thought it was serious enough to basically ban them or whatever it may be, then they're not eligible for the Hall of Fame, then so be it. But all of these issues that people talk about with Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft and Tom Brady and everything else. Oh, and that's another thing too. If you're going to hold out Robert Kraft and you're going to hold out Bill Belichick, does that mean that you're also not going to allow Tom Brady to join the Hall of Fame in his first year of availability? Because I'll tell you what, if you're going to go 0 for 3 on that group of guys, then we've got a serious problem with the egos of people who are voting for the Hall of Fame, and none of them should be voting for the Hall of Fame. None of them. Absolutely zero. Luis becoming a member for the 57th month. What is up, Kyle? I shouldn't be typing and driving right now, but I couldn't miss another live stream. Miss the nation. Miss you, my friend. Luis! Appreciate you, baby. Hopefully you're doing good out there, my man. Your Dodgers stocking up again, man. Dodgers trying to make another run, baby. E-Man, we talking football today. Let's go. Super excited for the Pats and Hawks this weekend. Pats fan since I was 8. Good luck to the Patriots, E-Man. Thanks for being here. E-Man, exactly. No coach should ever be a first ballot Hall of Famer ever again. Bottom line, that is also a good point. You're setting a really bad precedent for future Hall of Fame voting as well. Because if Bill Belichick cannot make it into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, then realistically, what coaches should be? TC, absolutely. Be BS if Brady doesn't get in. You're setting a terrible precedent because of your vindictive feelings. And I get it. There are going to be people out there. This is fun. I actually have a video, like a video series recorded, about, the video title is Jealousy Almost Cost Me My Job. And I'm putting it out on my other channel and talking about how jealousy, ruins good things for people. There are people who experience jealousy. We all deal with emotions in different ways. And there are some people that hold on to jealousy. They hold on to feelings. They can't forgive. They can't forget. And there are some people who are just like, F it, man. I'm not holding on to jealousy. I'm not holding on. That's in the past. It does me no good to continue to feel like that. You have to be unbiased if you're going to be voting on peers and other people around you to go into the Hall of Fame. If you're going to be a Hall of Fame voter, you have to be able to take a step back from any feelings, any thoughts, anything like that. You have to be able to step back and say to yourself, okay, I am voting on a guy because of what they did on the field. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be voting. Fatal, we all know Andy Reid is going to be first ballot. The dude stays out of the spotlight and does his job. Heck, Taylor Swift might make it to camp. But, that's the thing, though. Is Andy Reid deserving of the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I think so. But if Bill Belichick can't get in, then how can Andy Reid get in on the first ballot? And I understand that there are other things that happened with Belichick that didn't happen with Andy Reid. I get that. But we're not voting on that. And if you would have told me that Bill Belichick coached for 7 years and won some titles, but during that 7 years had 3 instances that led them to be Super Bowl champions, then at that point I would say maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. And with all these incidents that's happened in a short amount of time, but that's not what happened. We're talking about 2, maybe 3 things over the course of 23 years. multiple MVPs for Tom Brady, multiple Super Bowl appearances, multiple AFC championships, multiple AFC East titles, multiple Super Bowl appearances, multiple Super Bowl titles. We're not talking about a short window where it was like, oh, they did this, maybe there's something to it. We're talking about a long time frame of success. All bullied kids in high school. It potentially, absolutely. It's crazy, man. The Hall of Fame debate is crazy because, like I said, at the NFL level, I don't really feel like at the NFL level I see the constant debate year after year like I do in baseball. Like with baseball, I feel like every single season it's like, oh, so-and-so got snubbed and so-and-so got snubbed. At the NFL, I don't feel it's like that, but this, to me, is probably way more of a bigger debate and an issue than anything that I've seen when it comes to MLB Hall of Fame balloting. New coach, new success. We have a lot of coaches in new places right now. Lots of coaches in new places. The Bills have hired Joe Brady. Todd Monken has gone to the Browns. Mike LaFleur to the Cardinals. Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins. Kevin Stefanski to the Falcons. John Harbaugh to the Giants. Clint Kubiak to the Raiders. Jesse Minter with the Ravens. Mike McCarthy to the Steelers. Robert Saleh to the Titans. New head coaches, new faces, new places. But is a new coach just going to automatically mean new success for some of these teams? Jesse with a $20 donation, and it worked this time. So here's the thing. Fatal is probably going to be super upset because he super chatted on Monday to take away Jesse's top super chat spot, and it didn't work for some reason. And now Jesse has super chatted $20 and is right back on there. I reset the messaging system today, so I'm hoping that it works moving forward. And so far, watching my guy cook while getting lunch and planning the rest of my workday in Chicago. Your turn, Fatal recoil. So now Jesse's throwing down with Fatal. Fatal donated $500. I don't see that notification, but maybe it will appear out of nowhere at some point. New faces, new coach, new success. Does a new coach automatically mean new success for some of these teams? Let's talk about it. Let's go by team. Joe Brady with the Bills. I think Joe Brady with the Bills, I don't really see it as a step up or a step down from Sean McDermott. I think Sean McDermott had a ton of success, and I think that the Bills wanted a change and hoped that change would maybe push him over the edge. I think Joe Brady is ready for a head coaching position. I think he's done enough with offenses from LSU to the Bills that at this point he deserves an opportunity to be an NFL head coach. But sometimes, like, really, you've got a team that's built for success. This is not something where you're not coming into the year for expectations. You're going into next year essentially being told, we're giving the reins to you because we think you can get us to a Super Bowl. That is a lot for a first-year head coach. Todd Monken for the Browns. He's got really no expectations whatsoever. We don't even know who his quarterback's going to be at this point. Will it be Deshaun Watson? Will it be Shedeur Sanders? Will it be Dylan Gabriel? Who's going to be the quarterback? And I think until the Browns figure out their quarterback position, it doesn't matter what head coach is there. I don't think any head coach will be successful until they figure that out. The Cardinals with Mike LaFleur. Obviously, his brother in Green Bay has had some great success. Mike is known as an offensive guy. Mike is a guy that hopefully can, if they decide to stay with Kyler Murray, get the most out of Kyler Murray. If they decide to move on and go with somebody else, I would be willing to bet that at this point, Kyler Murray is likely the Cardinals quarterback in 2026, unless something happens. And they're able to, this better show up. It did. Let's go, Fatal. Fatal with the $20.69 donation. This better show up. LOL. It did. It is there. It is there. Absolutely. It is there. Fatal's name on the leaderboard. It is fixed. Thank you, Fatal and Jesse, for the donations today. Mike LaFleur is a guy that I think might be needed in Arizona, but I still think it goes back to Kyler Murray. I mean, do they move on from Kyler Murray? I think they can, but who's next guy up? Like that's the problem. Are they going to re-sign Jacoby Brissett? Are they going to have him come back and be the quarterback? I mean, it might not be the worst thing in the world, but it is a new coaching staff. He's not going back to the last coaching staff he was with. Does Mike LaFleur want to hang his hat on Jacoby Brissett for their first season? Or do you want to say, man, Kyler Murray, he's got some things. Let's see if we can get the most out of him. Give it a year, and if it doesn't work, then go back to the drawing board. But who else? Jeff Hafley for the Dolphins. I think this is interesting given the fact that a lot of the pieces are on the offensive side of the ball, that Jeff Hafley was the guy that they went with. I think this is another team with kind of a quarterback situation here. I think this is another quarterback situation. Is Tua your guy? Is Tua not going to be your guy? If it's not Tua, then who else is it? Kevin Stefanski for the Falcons. I think Kevin Stefanski is a good head coach, but I think the problem with Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta is the same thing it was in Cleveland. Who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Michael Penix Jr., when will he be ready? Is it Kirk Cousins? If it's not Kirk Cousins, then who's it going to be? I think it's the same issue. You have questions at the quarterback position. John Harbaugh for the Giants. John Harbaugh for the Giants, to me, feels like the best hire of the cycle. And honestly, I would say Jesse Minter is a close second. Clint Kubiak is probably a close third. John Harbaugh, to me, was a much-needed hire by the Giants because he was still having success while he was in Baltimore. This is not a situation where like John Harbaugh all of a sudden at the end of his career just couldn't get things done. And now, or he was like, if you want to argue, like Mike Tomlin, where he was like stumbling into the playoffs barely every season. Like John Harbaugh was still having success. He had a yearly MVP candidate as his quarterback. They probably should have been to another Super Bowl or two if it hadn't been for the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I think John Harbaugh is a great hire there for the young talent that they have. He led a team that oversaw the development of Lamar Jackson from a guy that a lot of people felt should change positions in the NFL to being an MVP candidate at the quarterback position. That's going to be great for Jackson Dart. Kyle, wasn't Todd Monken ready to get Sanders on the Ravens? I feel like that may have been a report, but I don't know if that was ever like locked in. I don't know if that's 100% true. maybe he is excited to have Shedeur Sanders, but you still have Deshaun Watson in that absolutely horrendous contract. So are you going to cut Deshaun Watson? Because I don't think if Deshaun Watson isn't going to start, then you need to cut ties and just pay him to be away from your team. Clint Kubiak for the Raiders. I think Clint Kubiak for the Raiders is a substantially better hire than some of these other teams. I think Kubiak is the guy that could get the most out of Fernando Mendoza if he is and likely will be the number one pick. I think Kubiak is going to be the guy to make this offense compete in a very good AFC West. The defensive coordinator hire, I think, is going to be influential. I think retooling your offensive line is going to be a big thing, but from a perspective of just getting the most out of your offense, I think because of the weapons you have on offense for the Raiders, Clint Kubiak is your guy. I also wonder if Max Crosby really is on the way out in Las Vegas, because that would be a pretty big change as well on the defensive side of the ball. It was reported the other day that he's basically told ownership he's done, he wants out. We'll see if that actually happens. We hear that all the time. Jesse Minter for the Ravens, I think, is right up there with John Harbaugh. If you want to say John Harbaugh was the best hire of this cycle, I think you could argue that at worst, Jesse Minter is number 2. At best, he's 1B. I think he is an insanely talented coach. I think he is an amazing offensive mind. He's familiar with Baltimore. He worked as an assistant in Baltimore before he went to Michigan. And then he followed Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers, where he's had one of the better defenses in all of football the last couple of years. So I do believe Jesse Minter was a great hire for the Ravens. His offensive staff that he puts together will be very critical in continuing to get the most out of that offense. Mike McCarthy, for me, is really the worst hire of the cycle. And OEG even asked me, how do we feel about what Pittsburgh is doing? As a fan, I don't know what to feel. I would hate it. I'm not even a fan, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. People argued with me, so when I released the video of me ranting about Mike McCarthy, I'm going a little homer on Jesse Minter, but I think he's deserved it. When I did the video ranting about Mike McCarthy, I got a lot of comments about how Mike McCarthy has developed all of these quarterbacks, and now he can do the same thing in Pittsburgh. Who are you developing in Pittsburgh? Who are you developing in Pittsburgh? You're not going to sit here and try to tell me Will Howard is the guy in Pittsburgh, right? Also, let's talk about who did Mike McCarthy develop? When he got the job in Green Bay, Brett Favre was Brett Favre. He didn't develop Brett Favre. Are you going to argue with me that he developed Aaron Rodgers, who might go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Top 10-ish? Are we going to argue that he developed Aaron Rodgers? Because I'm sorry, I'm not giving Bill Belichick any credit for developing Tom Brady. I'm not giving Mike McCarthy credit for developing Aaron Rodgers. Development when it comes to quarterbacks has a lot to do with guys that aren't considered some of the best all time at their position. He didn't develop Jordan Love. He was gone before that happened. He went to Dallas. He didn't develop Dak Prescott. So who has Mike McCarthy developed? I've got just a second. I've got Pittsburgh homers. In my comment section trying to argue with me. Mike McCarthy is this insane quarterback developer. Who is Mike McCarthy developing at the quarterback position? Because there was also an argument. Hold on just a second, because now because when you take a look at his entire coaching resume, back in the late 90s when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs as the quarterback's coach, hold on. He got Joe Montana when he was 37 years old. And someone wanted to argue with me that the reason Joe Montana was Joe Montana in Kansas City while Mike McCarthy was an offensive assistant and quarterbacks coach, that's the reason that Joe Montana finished his career the way that he did. I am sorry. Fatal, this is for you, Fatal. That is such a stupid argument. I don't see any argument for Mike McCarthy developing quarterbacks. He's not developing anybody. He got Brett Favre when he was Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers had tons of success after him. Aaron Rodgers going to go down probably top 10 quarterback. He got Dak Prescott when Dak Prescott was Dak Prescott. So who is he developing in Pittsburgh now? Jester says Montana developed McCarthy. Maybe that's true. You could argue that. You absolutely could, because, hold on, let me see something real fast. Joe Montana was 7 years older than Mike McCarthy. Joe Montana was 7 years older than Mike McCarthy when Mike McCarthy was coaching. Malik Willis, maybe. Maybe Malik Willis. I think Mike McCarthy is the worst hire of the cycle. You wanted, why did you decide to move on from Mike Tomlin? Which, again, I know you didn't fire Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin stepped away. But I would be willing to bet anything that Mike Tomlin did not feel supported by not just the fans in Pittsburgh, but the front office as well. I'd be willing to bet. So the reason you want a new head coach is to inject some life into your team. The only thing Mike McCarthy is injecting is McDonald's straight into his gut. I'm sorry. That might be one of the meanest things I've ever said on the internet ever before. And it's not necessarily Mike McCarthy's fault. So maybe I should apologize for that comment. But holy, are you effing kidding me? Mike McCarthy isn't injecting anything into any organization. I get that he's got a track record. You know what his track record is? underperforming. Just like Mike Tomlin. How many teams did he have in Green Bay? How many teams? I understand he's got a Super Bowl, but how many teams did he have in Green Bay? How many teams did he have in Dallas that were good teams that did nothing in the playoffs? I don't see this working out very well. The Ravens get Jesse Minter. The Browns get Todd Monken. The Steelers get Mike McCarthy. Bless me. Man. Oh, and then we still have one more. The Titans hired Robert Saleh. I don't hate that hire, with the exception of the fact that when you have a first overall pick in Cam Ward that had a little bit of success towards the end of the season and did seem to grow as the year went on, to me, it was interesting to see that they decided to go on the defensive side of the ball instead of the offensive side of the ball. That was what was interesting to me. I do think Robert Saleh deserved another shot. I think he got the short end of the stick in New York. I think, unfortunately, he got caught up in the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. They tried to make him the quarterback. He gets hurt. Then his next year back, he's just not that good. Yeah, E-Man, Packers, Saints, Chiefs. If you, I did, and listen, I'm going to go find the comment right now, actually. Let me go find the comment, because obviously with it being the off season, unfortunately, we're not getting a ton of views and comments right now, which, chat, if you could help me, what in the world do you guys want to watch in the off season to keep people from not leaving? I did the top 5 Super Bowls of all time, and I didn't even get 500 views on that video. Let me find it real quick. Oh, no, I don't want unresponded. I'm going to be able to find it here pretty quick. I'll tell you exactly my comment, because I went, like, I gave them a hefty response. Somebody said I had a really bad take, and I said, or a really good take, but you just don't agree. Glass half full. This comes from Jay Mossberg. Then he said, no, it's just an unrealistic of understanding of McCarthy's ability to teach quarterbacks, and another lack of understanding of Will Howard's ability to learn. In reality, outside of your opinion, you're way off. You'll learn soon, though. So I said, you think Will Howard is the guy? I don't see anything with Howard that leads me to believe he is the answer at quarterback for you. He said, it's not about who he is right now. It's about who you will become. This signing is 100% about the growth and development of Will Howard or whoever they sign or draft in free agency. The Steelers made this move because they gave to develop a QB since 2005. First off, this guy does not use punctuation. Mike has made every quarterback he's ever played under or played with better. From 94 until now, he's undefeated at developing, improving quarterbacks, I promise. So I said, what quarterback did he develop during his time in Kansas City? Aaron Brooks had a couple of okay seasons with him in New Orleans. He inherited a team with Brett Favre. You could argue that Rodgers developed under him, but you can't seriously believe that McCarthy is the reason Rodgers turned out to be an MVP. He also inherited Dak, so I'm not sure what QBs you're referring to that he has developed all of these years in the league. So he responded back and he said, so basically you're just negative and choose to superficially judge him instead of understand how he's beneficial for us. Just stop being a Steelers fan. First off, there is nothing about me that's even close to being a Steelers fan. It's a bad vibe. You asked who he developed. Like Joe Montana didn't raise his quarterback from his last year in San Francisco when he was with him in KC, shaking my head. When he was with Brooks, Favre, and Dak, they all had better seasons immediately. Why are you ignoring that? In addition to Aaron Rodgers' whole career, the backups that always came in and played good, etc. Come on, man, you're not realistic. I said, well, I'm not a Steelers fan, so I have an unbiased opinion here. And I said, second, you brought up that he developed quarterback. So I asked you, who did he develop? And he hasn't responded since then. Oh, man. It's some of these comments sometimes, man. I like to think that I have a pretty unbiased opinion 95% of the time. I'm I'm hard on my own teams. I'm hard on other teams. I try not to put under or I try not to put on rose-colored glasses when it comes to a lot of my evaluations. But at the end of the day, man, like sometimes it is what it is. And I understand that maybe you're a Steelers fan and you're trying to hope for the best. You're trying to hope for the best with your team. I totally get it. But we got to call a spade here. And Mike McCarthy he had his shot. He had his shot. He hasn't delivered a majority of the time outside of a Super Bowl. He did exactly what Mike Tomlin did. He delivered a whole lot of playoff appearances without a whole lot of results. And now he's taking over a team that doesn't even have a quarterback. And honestly, for as good as Malik Willis played, do we really think Malik Willis is leading the Steelers to a Super Bowl? SB, you're right. He's got a Super Bowl. You look at his resume and you say, oh, he has a Super Bowl and he has a track record of winning. Yeah. 15 years ago, you're right. Super Bowl is 15 years ago, and his track record of winning is the same as Mike Tomlin's. Getting things done during the regular season, getting into the playoffs, and underperforming. How many times did we watch Green Bay get to the playoffs during his run there and come up short? SB, if Will Howard is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, then you can come have this chair. And I will let you come sit here and have my job. That's how confident I am that Will Howard is not the answer in Pittsburgh. It's not. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's sad to say, but it's time to wish football a farewell. After Sunday, football will still be here, but we will not have another game to look forward to until that preseason Hall of Fame game that will take place in Canton during training camp. We will close out the winter. Winter will turn into spring. Spring will turn into summer. And then at some point in time, we will start to see players in pads. And it will be time to ramp things back up again. Mike, you are not getting fined today. No fines for you. UFL draft content, I'd rather punch myself in the face. We have the Super Bowl, and then after that, we will have the Combine. We'll have free agency. We'll have the NFL draft. We'll have things to keep us occupied and to have some fun with for a while. But I encourage you all to stick around. We'll keep doing Headliners Unfiltered. We'll keep doing Headliners Unfiltered. We'll talk about other sports here as well. We'll continue. I mean, we're primarily a football channel, so don't get me wrong. We will talk about football. We will continue to do that. We've got the World Baseball Classic coming up here in, I think, about a month or so. I think they announce rosters in the next couple of days is when they'll start announcing rosters. We'll have the Olympics. That will be fun to root for together. We are a channel that does have international viewership, though, so there might be some people in here hanging out with us that are not fans of the United States that will be rooting for a different country. Especially those Canadians. So we'll talk about the Winter Olympics. We'll have maybe some hockey and basketball talk. The basketball, huge trading deadline. Holy cow. Lots of trades over the last couple of days. I think the sport with the most meaningless trades is basketball, because I feel like when you trade a player and you give up 14 first-round picks, 7 of which are protected, and 4 of them won't be unless a team falls inside the top 12, and of those picks, 3 of them are over the next 3 years, 5 of them are between the years 2030 and 2040, and the rest of them will happen after 2075. I think when you make trades like that, it makes no sense to me, so I don't even pretend to understand what is happening at the NBA trade deadline. The Houston Rockets have traded Jameer Boswell for 6 first-round pick consideration, 3 of which are protected, and the rest will take place after the year 2030. I don't even know what basketball is doing at this point. Basketball is the drunk uncle on game night who comes in and just nobody knows what he's doing. There's a whole lot of action and nobody can stop talking about it. But when it's all said and done, I don't think anybody really understands what happened. But maybe we'll talk some basketball playoffs and stuff like that as we get closer to playoff season. I'm excited to watch some curling. I don't know about you guys. Lon, listen, I'll tell you, okay? I watched the Michigan State game the other night. My buddies were like, "Are we getting on Arc Raiders?" And I was like, "Yep." I was like, "I'll be on. There's 11 minutes left in the game. Give me about half an hour, commercials, following, timeouts, all that stuff. Give me about a half an hour." It took me an hour and 15 minutes to finish watching that game. It took an hour and 15 minutes to play just over 11 minutes of basketball. I'm sorry. If you're going to argue with me that baseball is boring to watch, then you better hate basketball. The longest hour and 15 minutes of my life to play 11 minutes of basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 1 o'clock. I appreciate everybody being here today. The final Headliners Unfiltered show before football is officially over with. But that doesn't mean we'll be going anywhere, because we're going to continue to do off-season content. We're going to continue. My E-Man, I saw you ask about some props. I'm not talking about the Super Bowl or props in this show, because later today or early tomorrow there will be a Super Bowl preview video out. And if I tell you those things now, then there's no reason to watch it. And then if you don't watch it, then we don't get views. And if we don't get views, we don't make money. And then if we don't make money, then my kids, they don't get to eat. And if my kids don't get to eat, they could potentially die. And if they die, then I have to go to prison for being a terrible dad. Do you see what happens when you don't watch off-season content? My kids will die and I will go to prison. Oh man, that got dark fast. But that's why you guys should watch. Just watch. Just watch. That's all we're asking for. Just watch. When you can, watch some videos. I don't know if they're going to let me bring my recording equipment into prison with me. Help feed Kyle's kids. Keep Kyle's kids alive. Oh, chat. All right. Hey, I appreciate it all. I got some stuff that I'm going to go do. I'm actually getting ready to tear apart my studio to redo some things. So my studio is going to be in shambles the next couple of days. So my hope is I get it back together quickly for content on Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I hope you enjoy the Super Bowl. I hope you enjoy the weekend. Let me know what Super Bowl snacks you're going to be having. Let me know if you're having Super Bowl parties. Appreciate everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And as always, I will catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Appreciate everybody.